Two more people. Hello.
It's a good thing you waited that long.
Yes. So I am Neerav Mehta. I am from Red Crackle. We are a Drupal development company in San Jose, South Bay. And you are seeing the demo of the most viral module in Badcamp 2019, as I know it now. The title of the session is Build Drupal Site Using Visual Programming.
It's an error code. Check P2.
So the vision, are you for the visual programming or something else?
I'm just making sure you're recording.
Oh, okay. So the vision of this module is to automate all the actions on the site without any PHP coding. And the target audience or the target users is the site builders who does not know PHP or are not very comfortable with it and don't want to do it. Some of the examples that you can do using this module is send automated marketing emails depending on the user actions or user persona and whatever rules you want to set up. You can even redirect users to different dashboards depending on their roles. You can even alter and validate forms or do some actions on form submissions. And here's the slide you are looking for, the advantage over rules. So how many of you have actually used rules in Drupal 7? Okay, so most of you, I guess, or at least half of you. So rules was a module in Drupal 7 which did something very similar. And in fact, when we started this module, we considered whether it makes more sense to build this on top of rules or create a new one. But while analyzing all that, we figured it's better to build a new module because just the way we want the data structure to operate is very different from how rules stores it. So just doing the interoperation, it will take us a decade to figure it out. So the advantages over rules are it's visual programming. It's basically drag and drop graphical UI to set up rules. You basically drag and drop and it gets there. It's not like rules where it's all list based and you have to actually figure out what is doing where, when, and all that. It's much easier to follow the inputs and outputs as compared to using tokens. So this is one of the feedback that we had received from rules, the site builders regarding rules, that they don't really know how to use the tokens. Like for a developer, it's probably easier to know what a token stands for and how to search for a token probably, but a site builder has no idea. So we actually got rid of tokens. You cannot use tokens in Ifthenelse module, but it's much simpler here because it's just connecting output to the next block's input. So you are actually sure what is coming in and what is going out. Built-in support for the else statement. Now this is something actually we personally struggled with in rules, but at least in the rules core, you cannot do an else statement. If you, for example, if you want to do a redirect based on the user roles, like if a role as an administrator, go to page 1. If a role is editor, go to page 2. You actually have to create two rules, one for each role. There is no else statement in there. And we wanted else to be built in this module. So you can actually have one if then else, that's what you're calling now.
Okay.
Not to confuse the rule. So if you have one if then else, you can actually have else statement in there, and as many as you want. Rules also by default does not support form alteration, validation, and submission. So you cannot do anything to a form using rules. But this again is built into if then else. And over time, we definitely want to enhance the integrations and everything. And again, our vision is to make it a no-code platform for anybody to configure a site, specifically the backend for now at least. Now, there are a few things left to do. Actually, let me go over the demo first, and then I'll go over the remaining items that we still need to work on. And again, this is still in beta. So you may encounter bugs. We have not gone to the production release right now because we are still testing it out with multiple configurations of the site and all that. Like for example, just 2 days back, we received a issue or a bug that it does not work very well with the layout builder. It crashes, and we fixed that. But I'm sure there are more issues which we are not aware of as of now. So we have started using this on all our client projects, and I know people have been using it outside as well, and we are getting more issue requests. But I believe this will be stable in about a month or so. So yeah. So let me. Oh, I need to. Okay, I don't know how to do that. Let's do this. Let me display. Let me see if there is an easier way to duplicate. Displays. Okay, awesome. Okay. So the admin interface to the Ifthenelse module. So if you go to configuration, once you enable it and go to configuration, it shows up here, Ifthenelse. We are actually thinking of moving it to the workflow at the bottom there.
Make the screen bigger.
Oh, sorry. Let's see. Will it be?
You can just do like Apple Plus to make the
Can be bigger?
Oh, just.
Plus.
Yeah, that.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay, cool. So we are thinking of moving this to the workflow section here where rules originally was. We'll do that when we have some time. Okay. So when you, and actually, we also have, within the rules module, we also have this Ifthenelse examples. So when you enable this examples module, it will actually create a few rules for you or Ifthenelses for you, which will be in disabled state. So Ifthenelse, and again, it created quite a few, and I enabled some of them for the demo. So let's go through the easiest one first, the message on article load. Okay, so this is how the UI looks, and the easiest way to use this is to click on this. It makes it full screen, and then you can search for the blocks or the nodes. We are calling it nodes, each one, because the library that we are using, rt.js, that one is calling it node. So it's not a Drupal node, it's just a, I don't know what to call it, node. So for example, you can search for action block user and drag and drop here and then connect it. Right? So, so this is an example rule setup. What it is doing is the event is entity load, this is basically similar to a hook. Now you want to generally, especially for entity load, you generally want to select an entity, not let this rule execute or Ifthenelse execute on all the entities. So here we've selected an entity, and you can select any of those. For now, it's just the content and the bundle. So hold on, content, article. So there are, what you will find is the output. There is always, unless it's a condition, there is always going to be a success output or a socket that we call. Now socket, that success will be true as long as that action is, or action passed, right? So for example, let me give you, okay, so for example, if you have an entity and you are trying to extract a field which does not even exist, then success will be false. And when you use it is basically, if you don't want the next action to execute based on the result of this current action, that's when you use success, or you want to chain them, right? So for example, if success is false here, this will not execute if it is connected to the execute here. So So execute here is like a boolean which says, do you want to execute this action or not? And since it's connected to success here, this will execute only if this is true. Otherwise, it will not execute. So, and again, for entity load, it's always going to be a success. There is no condition under which this will fail. And what we are doing here is we are setting this text article has been loaded to the message variable input and setting the message as status. So when the article loads, ideally you should see this article has been loaded, and let's try that. So if I go to Ifthenelse, article has been loaded, right? So this already gives it a leg up over the rules module, which does not even show a message. So let me go to a slightly more complex one. Here, page redirect to different pages based on role. So this was an example I had mentioned earlier.
That's a quick question.
Yes.
Is this mostly for the user interface, or can you use it also for the front end? For the
Right now it's for the back end specifically. We don't have it for. We have not integrated the front end, but if we'll talk. Let's talk about that later in the discussion. We have been thinking about it, but we are not sure if people will use it or not. So anyway. So here the use case is depending on the user role, I want to redirect the user to a different page. So what I am doing here is when the user logs in, I'm checking the user role, whether you want to check for at least one role or all roles, and I'm basically selecting administrator here. So if the user has administrator role, then you execute the next statement, which is redirect the user to /admin/content. So let's try it out. So I believe I should have an administrator role. Let me make sure actually. Okay, so I do have an administrator role. Let me log out and log in. And it goes to /admin/content. Just to make sure that this is the actual if then else which is doing that, let me go to configuration, if then else, and this one. Let me disable this. So now let me log out and log in. Okay, now it goes to user/1. So again you can have multiple if then else. So let me actually show that to you as well on how to do that. So here was only one role, but we can actually have multiple, right? Condition user role. I guess we have to fix that. Select from the list. One role. So when it is okay, we don't have more roles here, but it would appear here, and then you can actually connect again the same thing here, and then but again, so this again will be an issue because an administrator is also an authenticated user. So this again depends on which one gets executed first. But if you have different roles,
Is there a way to control that? Which gets executed first?
that's a good point actually. As of now, no. Let me think.
Potentially like a waiting system.
So instead of a waiting system, I think what you can do, and actually that's a good idea, what you should do in that case is have this condition here, chain it, right? So this user still goes here. The success of this goes to, actually we want a boolean. So if this fails, then let me think. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay. So if this passes, if the user has the administrator role, then it will redirect to admin/content. If the user does not have admin role, then it will go here. This will be true because it's a boolean not, and this will get executed. And I'm checking if the user has. Actually, I don't even need this in that case. So delete. If it says execute. So basically, if the user is administrator, it will go to admin/content. For any other role, if he does not have administrator role, it will go to /admin only. So you can just chain it. We don't really need anything else there. Did that make sense? And actually, let's test it out. This was not part of the demo. I have not tested it, so we'll see. Let's make it active.
Demos are the best.
Yes. I am also excited to test it out. Let me create, I don't even have a user, so let me create a user. No role, and doesn't matter.
Drupal.
So and now it should only go to admin, and which will probably be permission denied, I'm guessing. Now let's see. Let me make sure. Oh, so success is false, which means it should be here. Sorry, not executed. So this did not even get executed in that case. So now let's try again. Woohoo!
Nice.
Okay. So in rules, this would have required 2 separate rules for you to do that instead of just one Ifthenelse. Now let's go to little more complex as well. Let's see. This one. Okay. So this is much more complicated. And what we want to do is when an article is published, we want to log that in Watchdog, as well as set a status message, as well as send an email. And this is only if the article is basically published from a not published state to a published state. So if an article is published and you save it again in the published state, it should not do any of those. Only if it moves from a not published to published, it should actually send an email and do all the notifications. So again, this would have been again more difficult to do in rules, but we are using this after saving existing entity hook or the event. It gives you 2 outputs, entity and entity original, which is the entity which was before save, and entity which is after save, or the new one. And we are actually getting the value of a field of this entity. So in both the cases, we are getting the status value, which is the published boolean. And so for the original entity, we are actually passing it through a boolean not, and then doing an AND. So this will execute only if this is true and this is false, sorry, both are true here, which means this is false and this is true. So this will execute only if in the original entity the status was false, and in the new entity the status is true, which means it just got published. And then basically we are doing the three actions, which is putting it the watchdog, and basically setting the message as well as sending an email.
Oh wow. That's cool.
So let's try it out.
What is the use for the sending? Just Drupal sending?
We are using SMTP right now. I am using SMTP.
Okay.
But yeah, it's through Drupal's mail.
So you could actually use this in theory a lot like the Workbench access kind of thing. You could
Yes.
do some of the same
Yes,
things.
you can do the workflows and everything here as well. Correct.
Wow.
And actually, we have the actions or the conditions for access control and everything as well. So this is for the form specifically, but we can actually grant or deny field access on a form load based on the role. So we've been using that a lot. So
Do you have
yes.
integrations with concept moderation as well?
Yes. Yeah. So okay, so let's try it out. Content. So we have an article. It's already published. Let me unpublish it. So nothing should happen. And actually, let's see the message. What should it be? So the message should be article has been published. So now it is unpublished. Let me move it to published. Hopefully it will work. Article has been published, and that block, the text that you saw was actually from the SMTP module, because I had put this in debugging mode. So otherwise it would not have. But now you can see the status message. Now if you again go to edit, keep it published. You do not see that message. So that is one more example. Similarly, we actually have an event. Let's see. For cron as well. Where is it? Notify by email when cron has started. Pretty simple rule. So I won't show that again here because it's the only thing difference is event cron run, and then you are sending an email, which actually Drupal already does. So anyway. This one actually I wanted to show because this is with form validation. So let me actually rearrange this, and we need to work on rearranging this better. But okay. So what this one is doing is on form validate. So this is basically So whenever the form is validated, and then we are filtering by the basic page add/edit form. So you can either select an entity form, or you can actually give a class name of the form, or you can do it on all the forms. But here we just want on a basic page edit form. We are getting the value of the field, which is the title. We are checking whether the title is test or not. So you are comparing two strings, and here's one of the inputs. So if the title is test, then we are setting a form error for this title field, which says title should not be test. Very simple, but this is one thing which rules cannot do. Right. So let's do basic page edit. I have test, save. Title should not be test.
But that's very literal.
Sorry?
That's very literal, meaning that I realize you're just giving this for an example.
Yes,
If it would have said test page, it would have actually said. It's not looking for just the word text in the string.
No, yeah, but you can
The
actually.
whole string text.
So you can change that. So let's see when. So here you see the condition compared to strings. I've set the comparison to be equal. You can actually say input 2 contains input 1, or input 2 starts with input 1, or input 2 ends with input 1.
Wow.
So
If it contains the word, then forget it.
right. So if input 2 contains input 1, let's make sure.
It better not be a valid test.
So if input 2, actually it should
No, that's
be.
actually really creative. That's really cool.
I should probably. This will probably need to be connected here, and this will need to be connected here. So input 2 contains input 1. So if the title contains test, then it will fail. So let's try that. Again, this is I have not tried this yet. So let's see.
I'll make it 2 different words. There you go.
Yep.
Could
Awesome.
you do regular expression text?
Not yet. But that's a good point. We should do that, I guess. Let me note it down. Actually.
It'd be cool if you could test if it's like all uppercase.
Yep.
or
Yep.
something.
Yep.
I have that.
Down on that
Yeah.
behavior.
I do that with the module.
That.
Okay. And again, this is the form validation event, but you can again do the same thing on form alter or form submission as well. So we have all those events there. Okay, so any questions about the demo? Anything?
So I presume that all of this gets exported to configuration.
Yes.
Just like any other configuration.
It is a configuration entity, so you can export it and import it.
Amazing.
Yes.
So I think you gave this presentation at UCSF, but I couldn't make it. And I had looked at it previously, and it seemed very rudimentary at the time. It seems like you guys have added a lot more
Yes.
functionality now. Like if I needed a feature that wasn't involved, is there like a plugin architecture to build?
So that will come in the next slide. Okay, is there any other question?
I have one. So we have a use case with D7 with rules where we have a website that has about 6,000 members, and each member profile has like 25 fields, like address, phone number, all that information. It's an association type site, and so if the person changes their address, there is some like legalities to like where a mailer needs to get sent. And so that's actually a different department of the organization. So if a user goes onto the website, just change their address and hit save, what we do in 7 with rules is compare every field from what the previous state was to the current state of every single field individually. And so it's this god-awful mess that ends up making the user's page take like a minute to look at. And so just with I've got a demo site pulled up and I'm messing around with some of the compare functions, it seems like this would allow for that to be better, but I'm not seeing the ability to look at like a per field element inside of a node or a user. Like comparing specific fields. Or am I
So here we are comparing the title here, right?
Oh yeah, got it.
So how is that different
Yeah,
from?
so we would just have to.
So here, okay, so let's give an example. So here,
Specify any field.
yeah. So here, if you have title, but you have all the fields here as well.
Got it. So we would just have to say.
So it automatically populates all the fields that are defined in your Drupal installation
So
here.
we would just have to do a string that has one of that for every field, which is what we're doing in rules.
Correct.
Anyway.
Yes.
Can you go to the first square where you're identifying the user? I'm sorry, were you done? I didn't mean.
No, yeah, you're good.
Where?
That's perfect.
Yeah, where you're identifying the actual role or user. Or the,
Oh, that's a
I mean,
different one, yeah.
Who's doing this? This
Yeah.
action.
So
Because based on that, you may answer my question because I have a question.
yes.
We're using Workbench access,
Uh-huh.
right? So users not only have a Drupal role, but more importantly, they belong to a workbench, like a work group. Okay, so in higher ed, they belong to a department or a program. So what I saw, the beauty of this that I can't do with Workbench is, you log in, I check your Workbench, you are redirected to your homepage
Mhm.
rather than a generic Drupal white page that says you're logged in and you've been a member for 6 months. I don't care. How the hell do I edit my content? If I take you to your homepage, at least you have a clue,
Yes.
right? So could I do that based off their workbench?
So is Workbench a field or what? I have not used Workbench recently, so I'll need to look into that. If it's a field,
it works on taxonomy.
so Workbench is a taxonomy.
It definitely works off taxonomy. That's one of 2 ways you can set Workbench up. We're using taxonomy, so would that be helpful?
And how is the user associated with that Workbench? Is it
We create the groups, the work groups, and we
Okay.
just assign them to the work group in Workbench.
so you're assigning users to a taxonomy term specifically?
That's exactly right.
Should be able to do a field comparison just like what he did.
The only issue here is it will work. Let me think.
If I could do that,
Actually, yeah, you should be able to do that.
instance alone would make.
So you should be able to do that. What you will need to do is actually. So I'm assuming that the user reference is a field in taxonomy. If it's the other way around, if the workbench is a field on user, that's very easy. You can do the same thing as here.
Uh-huh.
But if the user reference is a field on the taxonomy term, you will probably need to check
I'm pretty sure.
for the
it's-
taxonomy terms. So you can actually do entity load. So you can actually use this, not the event, the value entity.
Yeah, 'cause I'm pretty sure it's a reference. I don't think it's.
Yeah. So you can actually load the taxonomy term, get its value, compare with the user field, and then redirect the user.
I mean, that alone, for me, I can't tell you how many people said, I've worked in other CMSs and there's always a dashboard or I go to my homepage or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, sorry. You missed Drupal 7. So sad, too bad.
You can do that in 8 right now. We've been doing that many with a client. You have to write your own access plugin.
And I
And
didn't
it's,
really want to jump through that hoop for something that seemed a little trivial.
well, this took
This
5
just fixed
minutes
it. Yeah,
or
no,
less.
Yeah,
We're writing
I'm
our
done
own
to say, I'm already,
accesses.
I'm on board, man.
And again, if you want to use that, give me a call and I can help you set it up.
Nice. Thank you.
So okay, so next slide. Okay, any other question? No. Okay. So coming back to here. Okay, there's things we still need to do. Integration with the non-core field types. If you define your own custom field, we actually still need to define the hooks and everything so that other people can write their own modules on top of this, and those nodes appear in that left sidebar. So we are going to do that. We have already sort of started the process, but it's not completely there yet. Multi-valued fields, that actually we have sort of already done that. I didn't show the demo because I have not tested it myself yet. But if a field is multi-valued, then comparison becomes more difficult, right? Because then what do you compare? Like which field do you compare with, and so on. So what we are doing is we are also giving another input called index. So if you don't connect that, it will always be like index 0, which works with multi-valued as well as single-valued field. If you know that a thing is multi-valued, you can actually give a different index and then compare.
Because you also have an aggregate field where it's just like if any one of these values is true, then continue.
Let me write
You
it
need
down.
an
That's a
aggregate
good point.
field. And that would work in multi-value really well.
Okay. Integration with the web form and Drupal commerce. We already started Drupal commerce. The web form we still have to do because web form is an entity, but it stores its data in its own different data structure. So we are figuring out how to integrate that. We don't know that yet. Loops. So loops is easier to implement in the back end, but we are still not clear how we will actually show it in the front end visual programming. So if you have any ideas on how we can actually do loops here on the front end, let me know. UI improvement, there are a few bugs. For example, if you noticed, when I was dragging the nodes, they were placed slightly off things, and that's a browser, like it changes from browser to browser, so we are still trying to figure out what's happening there. And also there is one more bug. If you click on a drop down and then try to scroll, it actually zooms instead of scrolls, because the dt.js library, that its default action on thing is zooming in and out.
I've seen that before.
Yeah.
In other modules.
Okay.
Going back to loops real quick, do you have support for each right now? Like,
We don't have a support for
you
for
don't
each
have
now.
for it. So you can't like, I say I want to take all the nodes of this thing and then do a logic against it and then move to the next step. Okay.
So again, if you have any suggestions on how to do that on the front end, how to display that, so that
Within your UI?
Correct.
You're saying? Okay.
so because that's like it's easier to implement on the back end because
Sure,
obviously it's just a for loop. But how will we make it easy for a site builder to implement a loop? I don't know that yet.
Okay.
Multilingual support, there's no multilingual right now, especially in the front end JS. So we are using Vue.js for this, and the strings are hard coded in English as of now. And make it extensible using hooks and services. So we still need to do that.
So in terms of the architecture of this project, would you say if I wanted to add a feature right now, I just have to like go into the actual code and add it myself? It would be hard.
It will be harder unless you know how the module works. So actually, and one thing probably more is documentation.
Yeah.
So we don't have documentation.
It's a great
Well,
contrib
because I was thinking
opportunity.
maybe it had like a plug-in architecture where it had its own hooks and you could just hook into it.
So that's what we need to do. Yeah.
Okay.
But if you have any, if you specifically want something, let me know. I can add it, or I can help you add it. Okay. Cool. So we are 2:10. So we are 5 minutes before time. Any questions or any other suggestions on how we can improve this, including UI? Like we specifically are not that great in UI UX. So if you,
I love it. It's so much better than rules. Sorry.
thank you.
I actually have to start using it, but I think once I start using it, I can
Oh, yeah.
send you some feedback.
Okay, that will be great.
Yeah.
And it's still in beta, so don't move it to production without testing. Without
No,
testing.
I'm just kidding.
Since we've got a couple minutes, could you show us how you go about creating one from scratch? Because we saw one
Sure.
that already started, and
What do you want to do?
like just anything as long as you just come in and it's a blank screen. I guess like if I don't know, whatever. I can't think of one right now, but you can even do one that we already looked at. But just really how you
Sure.
start with the blank
Oh,
slate.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
So actually, let me answer.
Mine's just a comment, just make sure those colors are accessible.
Oh,
Like
But
yellow
actually-
and white,
The
very
yellow
hard
and
to
white's
read.
not.
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. But do you? So the fact is, this module is not going to be accessible, right? It's a canvas.
No, I
So-
mean, just make
Yeah.
it readable.
Okay, got it.
Some
Yeah.
with site things.
Accessibility, like just color blindness. Like if someone's colorblind,
Okay.
the module could still work great for them, but white on yellow is not.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a color contrast checker. that
Okay.
You can run if you just run the color
Yes,
contrast checker.
we've done that on one of the projects, but yeah, okay.
And some of the text is black there, the rest is white.
Yeah, black.
So
work great.
yeah, so all the sockets and nodes and everything is black. Basically, this one, white, and this is black. So again, yeah, give feedback. We are not that great in UI UX, so okay. So creating a rule from scratch, or if then else from scratch, not a rule. So let's see. If I search for, what do you want to do? Let's see. So user log out. When the user log is out, you want to let's see, condition. What condition should we use? there is no any suggestion for what you.
User role, like when
Role-
your admins log out.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So admin logs out. Set a message that you have logged out. Message.
Can you trigger an email instead of a message? Just
Sure.
out of curiosity.
And I'll send to myself. And we should probably make from as optional because then it can just send from the site. But anyway, so I'll duplicate this.
Oh, that's going to be clogged.
Subject. Oh.
So can those values be variables? Like you're putting in text, but
Yes, they can be variables. So in that case, you will have to basically get the field from the entity and all that. But yeah, they can be variables. Let me see.
can you send it HTML?
I should be able to. I have not tested it. Let's see. Okay, so when I log out, I am the admin, so let me log out. Oops. So, okay, so we'll have to debug this. Actually, let me do, let's say subject, log out, admin, user. Yeah, I'll have to debug this. So, but this should have worked. But and this is how you create.
Thank you. Got the idea. Thank you.
Get some time. All right.
Thank you.